Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, January 4th. We are continuing our work with graphing by examining a scatter plot today. Before we look carefully at the scatter plot, however, we need to review some of the things that we have been learning up to this point. First off, let's remember what a coordinate pair is. A coordinate pair is a pair of numbers that describe a point where a vertical and a horizontal line meet on a coordinate grid. The coordinate from the horizontal axis is always written first. So, for example, in the diagram below, point A has coordinates 3, 4, because we have to run before we fly, right? Or we have to walk before we get into the elevator. Grade 5s, you used coordinate pairs to create this picture right over here, and grade 6s, you used coordinate pairs to create this picture over here, where you are also practicing using negative numbers. So now that we remember what it is to plot coordinate pairs, we are returning to the idea of a scatter plot. A scatter plot is a graph made by plotting coordinate pairs to show if one set of data can be used to make predictions about another set of data. And you'll remember from our previous lessons that data is just information. So we are looking at whether or not one set of information can be used to make predictions about another set of information. We are going to explore the scatter plot through a context question. And my context question is going to revolve around the NHL Eastern Conference results. What we have in front of us is the results of the NHL Eastern Conference from a previous season. So we have all of our teams are lined up along here, the number of goals from each team, and the number of wins of each team. And so these are our two sets of data, and we are going to look at whether we can use the number of goals to predict the number of wins. And I think that we can make a pretty fair prediction that the teams that score the most goals usually will be getting the most wins. Okay, I'll make a scatter plot to organize and interpret the data. Step 1, I'm comparing wins to goals, So I put goals on the horizontal axis. Okay, so I've got goals along the horizontal axis. All teams scored between 170 and 270 goals. So I will use a scale of 1 unit to represent 10 goals. So each of these is 10 goals, skip counting by 10. The vertical axis shows the number of wins. All teams had between 20 and 50 wins, so I will use a scale of 1 unit to represent 5 wins. So while we're skip counting by 10 along here, going up this way, we are skip counting by 5, going from 20 to 25 to 30 to 35. And if you're wondering about this little symbol right here, if you've not encountered it in a graph before, it kind of means skip a few. So like if I was singing the song 1, 2, skip a few, 99, 100, I would use that little symbol for skip a few. 0, skip a few, 170. Now that I'm all organized, I'm going on to step 2. I'm going to make coordinate pairs using the data in the table. The coordinate pair for the Ottawa point is 262.43. Ottawa, 262.43. So I estimate the location of the point, 262, and 43, and that's where I plot the first point. And then I move on to the other points in my grid. Once I have completed step 3 and I have plotted the points for the other 14 teams, then I move on to step 4. Step 4 is to check my prediction by looking at the points on the scatter plot. And it looks to me as though the points go from the bottom left to the top right of my scatter plot, but I'm going to use my ruler to be sure. And yes, I use my ruler and the points seem to follow an upward direction. So now for step 5, I'm going to refer back to that prediction that I made that teams that score the most goals usually get the most wins. So I think I can make some sort of a statement based on what I see in my scatter plot. This scatter plot shows that fewer goals usually result in fewer wins, and more goals usually result in more wins. So remember, a scatter plot is a graph made by plotting coordinate pairs to show if one set of data can be used to make predictions about another set of data. And that is exactly what we've just done. We looked at how the number of goals, that's one set of data, can be used to predict the other set of data, which is the number of wins. And we did this by making a graph where we plotted coordinate pairs. And that concludes the lesson portion of today's learning. And it's now your turn to move on to the activity portion, which you will find in Google Classroom.